Right, well, all this morning we're asking what Brexit means to you, and you'll be able to see some videos on our social media shortly. Let's speak to a couple of listeners, a couple of voters, a Remainer and a Leaver. Felicity Huston from Belfast. Good morning, Felicity.
Morning, Nicky.
And Mike Travis from Liverpool. Morning, Mike.
Good morning.
Mike, you voted Remain. Felicity, you voted to leave. Felicity, how are you feeling about today?
Well, I mean, it's the way our system works. We'll hear what the judges say, but I think the government have things organised, and the various parties in the Parliament have accepted that the will of the people is that we leave, so that will go ahead.
Isn't it great for democracy? It's ultimately in the hands of Parliament when this process is triggered.
Well, I don't think it is, really, though I don't pretend to be on top of all the details of it, the absolute minutiae of it, but from what I understand, that's not the case. It's actually up to the Prime Minister and the government.
Well, the government are arguing, Mike, that this amounts to a treaty, and they have the right to negotiate treaties. So there's some very finely tuned arguments on both sides. Many of the experts assume that this decision will go against the government. But what do you think of this? Essentially, this delaying tactic, Mike?
I don't think it's a delaying tactic, because I'm a great believer in democracy, and the referendum for me was never binding, and I'm always in favour of parliamentary democracy. I vote for an MP to go to Parliament to represent my views, and I don't think that my MP is involved in this decision, which has got a huge impact on my community, my city and my region.
You don't think the referendum is binding?
No, I don't think it does. For me, I think the only thing that is binding is a general election.
Felicity?
Well, I think it is binding. I mean, I can't help but feel that if the Remain side had won, they would be very happy with the result and would have announced it was entirely binding and that was it. I think that's what happens. When people don't win, they tend to think, oh, well, actually, is there some way we can get round that? As far as I'm concerned, it's binding. That's what we voted for when we went into the booth. We had months and months and months of campaigning with all sorts of wild tales told on both sides, but deep down underneath, we knew and we believed when we voted that this was whatever came out of this referendum was what was going to happen.
What did we vote for?
Well, we voted to leave, the details of which...
Yeah, but the details of
yes.
which, yeah.
But you see, the difference is that the people on the Remain side, which was the government, had the power and resources of the civil service to produce a picture of what was going to happen if we stayed. The people on the Leave side did not have those resources. As we know, the government wouldn't even let the civil servants talk to the Leavers about what might go on if we left. And so, therefore, they were rather in a much less powerful and resource-rich
So this was a victory for the people, you believe?
Yes, I do. I believe it was a victory for the people, absolutely, who knew what they were voting for. I think it's incredibly rude and insulting to suggest that people didn't understand what they were doing when they went to vote.
Go on, Mike.
Can I reply to that? I mean, I voted to Remain, and the referendum came out at a very narrow majority, and I'm not really that fussed about the results. I mean, I'm not going to Remain that's going to say that I'm a bad loser. I'm not. I will work for the best of the country. But the best of the country for me is to make sure we have a democracy in this country, and that's more than almost half of the population of the UK.
What is more democratic than the expression of the popular will through a referendum?
Well, I mean, for example, we have devolved governments in Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, and I think they have a right to decide what their futures are.
Yeah, what about Scotland and Northern Ireland, Felicity?
Well, we don't have a government, as people may be aware at the moment. Goodness knows when we're going to get a government again.
In normal circumstances, you do that.
Yes, but I mean, in this case, it was part of the United Kingdom. Our government and our Parliament agreed that we would be part of the referendum. There was no big argument over here that, sure, we shouldn't take part in this because we're different.
And what about Scotland? I mean, the Lord Advocate James Wolfe said the Scottish Parliament's consent is needed before the UK triggers Brexit. Surely you can understand that position, given the devolution settlement, and given how that devolution settlement back in the late 90s has evolved. Surely Holyrood's consent must be required, because these significant changes will significantly affect the place and power and situation in Scotland.
But didn't they vote to stay in the United Kingdom a couple of years ago? So they chose at that time, the people of Scotland chose to stay in the UK.
Circumstances have changed. They chose to stay in a UK in Europe.
Apparently so, but they are also part of the United Kingdom, and that's the way it works. You know, if you're on the losing side in a nationwide referendum, you just have to accept it. And there are different views on whether Scotland has to have a vote. I mean, that's part of what we're going on about today, and what we're going to hear from the Supreme Court, and whether they do actually have to have a vote or not on it. But I mean, ultimately, we're all part of the UK. We are taxpayers for the United Kingdom. We take the benefits of the fiscal arrangement within the United Kingdom, and therefore that's what's going to happen. It's going to be a UK-wide outcome, and I think that's how it should be, because that's what we're part of. If we were part of completely separate countries, obviously things would be different, but we're not.
Can I make the point quite simply, is that what really worries me is that we keep getting this thrown at us all the time. It is the will of the people that we come out of Europe. And that phase is actually stopping any real debate in this country. It's stopping debate within the population. Because if I talk to my friends, they come up with the idea of the will of the people.
You're lost. Deal with it.
I'm quite agree. I know. I'm not arguing that I lost. All I'm asking for is that we have a full and proper debate.
Well, there's going to be one on the deal. She said, there's going to be one on deal, and David Davis throughout this has said there will be proper scrutiny along the way. So what's the point of today in your mind, Mike?
For me, it's to make sure that the process of parliamentary democracy that we have in this country is being upheld, and that's the important point for me.
Thank you both very much indeed. Mike Travis from Liverpool.
Thank you.
Felicity Huston from Belfast. Thanks, Felicity. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You can hear it live on 5 Live 9:30. The Supreme Court result, their judgment. Don't miss it. Right here, 7:16.
This is 5 Live Breakfast.
And as Nicky was saying, the Supreme Court will rule today on whether the government will have to give Parliament a say over Brexit.